Welcome back to Scotiabank Saddledome in Calgary. We're set now for After Hours. Pleased to have with us Brad Treliving, who has skillfully, generally managed his team to first place in the Pacific Division, in fact, the Western Conference. How does that sound to you? And might I suggest you not be too reluctant to take some of the credit?
Well, I'll give it to the coaches and the players, but it feels good right now, but we know we've got a long way to go, so it doesn't mean a whole lot right now.
Okay, so you see right there is the standard Canadian deflect the credit answer. Why can't the answer be that I'm happy with the decisions I've made since I came here 4 years ago? I have altered the roster in a way that I like, and we've got a team that can contend for the Stanley Cup. So you see, we're trying something new here tonight, Brad. I'm asking the questions and I'm answering them too. All you got to do is listen.
You might be a better guest tonight too. No, we're excited, but as you guys know, there's two feelings in the league. There's winning and misery, and when you win, it's short-lived, and you're worried about the next one. And we've got another big one tomorrow. So, but very proud of the guys, especially tonight. We're short-handed, a lot of young guys. In the lineup, Nationals missing some guys tonight too, but our young group stepped up and proud of them.
When you stepped up here, Brad, you brought up a really good point. You said confidence.
Yeah.
You know, your team right now is playing with a ton of confidence. Your starting goaltender's playing well, your backup, your defense, even your young guys. It's just so important to have that through your lineup, isn't it?
Well, you know, Lou, from playing like it, these guys have played it their whole lives. You get to this level and like I use Oliver Shillington as an example. He's played well since he's been here, but he looked like a different player as soon as the puck went in the net for him, right? You feel like you belong, and there's that, you know, these guys have had success, you know, at every level coming up, and when they can have a little success at this level, it's amazing what confidence can do for a player.
So, Brad, until you took this job, you were pretty much out of Canada, earning your living in the U.S. Since 1990. Meanwhile, your father, Jim, owner of Boston Pizza, is well known as one of the dragons on the hit TV show Dragon's Den. You can catch it almost every day on the CBC.
Good plug for CBC there.
And the nicest dragon, I might add.
I guess the question is, what percentage of the time do you think people, like me, mistakenly called you Jim when you first got here?
Well, I get it the odd time, and I don't know whether to take, like, I mean, he looks real good for his age, but when they call me Jim, I kind of take it a little bit, you know, to heart. He looks good, I must look real old, but no, there's a slip up every now and again, and understandable. Yeah, I get it every now and again. When my wife starts calling me that, then I know there'll be problems.
I cannot count the number of times I did it, and graciously you didn't correct me. So we've got a ton of tweets for you, and the first 10 had to do with Boston Pizza. So here's one from Kristen, which is representative. Brad, do you get free pizza from any Boston Pizza location?
No, you think I would, but no. I get,
Hey, it's a business.
It's a business.
That's the first thing they teach you on the Dragon Show.
Exactly. There's the bill shows up, and you got to pay it.
Okay, and another one from SP Sandu. Are Boston Pizza specialties ever served to players as a pregame meal?
I don't know. I don't think so. We were actually in Columbus, like last game, and we had our dad's trip. And it's called Boston's in the U.S., so there's one right across the street. So we kind of, Dad had loaded up the fathers for a happy hour before the game, and then we had some pizzas on the plane coming home.
So you've led us to the father's trip, which just finished up this week. How special was it for you to have your father, Jim, on the trip with you?
It was a blast. I've been in the league for a while now, and we never got, you know, it was the first time we brought him on a trip like this. He's been on a trip like that. And I joked, when I was in Lou knows, when we were first started out in Phoenix, we were owned by the league. We barely had enough money to travel the players, never mind the fathers. So it was a big thrill for them, and these events are great. We talk about the memories and the moments. You go through a season, there's sort of ups and downs, but you remember the moments, and I know he had a blast. All the guys get to spend a few minutes with their dads and get to see the behind the scenes. So we had a real good time.
Did anybody call Jim Brad because he was in your world?
No, he doesn't get that very often. No, I don't think so.
You know what, I can honestly say, I've been on one of those dad trips as a father, and it is a great moment to see your son and what he's doing and having success. So I'm sure for him and all the successes he's had, I'm sure he probably had a blast just watching you in your world. Although he's been around it for a long time, that's a real in-depth look at it that he had.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, Luke, because we had Big Walt there, Keith, with his, and it was interesting as you've gone through it for many years as a player, all the years you played, and then getting to experience it with your son. Talking to Keith, I thought it would be sort of old hat for him, but he said it was, you know, he never got to do it with his dad when he's playing, but you guys look at it from a different perspective now, enjoying it, and get very proud of your son. So it's great that the guys get to do it.
So Brad, you've been astute in conducting the business of the Flames. You have most of your core players under contract. As the economic landscape of the NHL shifts and the degree to which it's shifting with respect to giving young players a lot of money was underlined last week when William Nylander signed with the Leafs. You heard he signed with the Leafs,
I
right?
did. He signed, did he? Yeah, okay, I heard that.
Anyway, you have a young superstar here who is in need of a new contract. That's Matthew Tkachuk. I'm not going to ask you to negotiate on TV, but I will ask you, with the way these second contracts are going, how much more difficult has it become to manage your salary structure and the cap?
Well, it's a challenge, there's no question. You really have to, as silly as it sounds, these players come in at a young age, and now a year or two into it, you really have to forecast. You really have to play the long game. A year, sometimes a year or two into their career when you see that they've taken a step. And obviously Matthew was a guy that, we knew early on. We were fortunate enough to get him in the draft, and just, shortly into his first year, he sort of had that it factor, and good for him and good for us that he's having a breakout year this year in terms of his production. We know it's gonna cost us, but you don't mind paying when you've got a good one like that. So we'll buckle in and get a contract done for him, and we know he's going to be a Flame for a long time.
Well, that leads us to this tweet then from Leah Kessel. Were you shocked, like the rest of us, when Matthew Tkachuk fell into your lap in the 2016 draft? I mean, you got him 6th overall. That's not quite like falling into your lap, but he was a find.
Yeah. Well, we were and we weren't. As you guys know, you sort of go into the draft, and the people ahead of you have an idea what they're going to do. That draft was interesting because the first, those first 3 picks, the consensus were, Matthews, Laine, and then Puljujarvi, and when Columbus sort of went off the board with Dubois, who's, they're all good players, we had a kind of a feeling that we may be able to get Matthew at 6. So very fortunate that it worked out the way it did.
Well, he fits right into what you guys are trying to be as a team, as an identity. And he's jumped in there. And again, going along with, you don't ever want to kind of hold a guy back if he's going to jump into the league and have the success that Matthew has had. So, I mean, for you as a general manager, you have to be excited with the way he's kind of stepped on and already taken a pretty big leadership role in this team.
100%, and sort of highlighted by him wearing a letter. Bill and I talked about that over the summer, and you're cautious a little bit with a young guy like that, and not wanting to put too much added pressure on him or more responsibility. But there's certain guys, as you guys know, that are just, they've got it, and it was funny, like we go back to our first year, and the first year that Matthew was with us, and there was some debate, going through that 9-game stretch, and early on, if I had to be real honest, probably game 4 or 5, I thought he'd be probably going back. And it was a game in LA where we got it handed to us pretty good. And, we know LA, a big, heavy team, and just the battle level that he showed, the compete and sort of the in-your-face style. And at that point, Brian and I turned to each other and said, this kid's not going anywhere. We need more of it, not less of it. So I better not say too many good things, because they're
exactly. The price is going up by the second here.
Yeah.
Let's move to how you became a self-made man who's paid his dues in hockey many times over. You delivered your first players, anywhere when you were 12. You were living in Tawasin, and this was to your junior high school in Tawasin. This was a story that you shared with Scott Cruikshank in an article that he did on you in The Athletic. It's a wonderful story, so share it with us now.
Well, that was the year the Canucks lost in the final to the Islanders. They got swept. And going back 100 years ago, we lived in Penticton, and we're a billet family for the junior team at that point. And we had a player at that time named Tony Curry who lived with us. And then Tony Curry went on to play in the NHL, and at the trade deadline that year, he was playing in St. Louis and got traded to the Canucks. So, trade deadline, now that, we all know that was sort of a miracle run for Vancouver. Didn't know if they were going to make the playoffs. So he just lived with us for the last 2 months of the year. Well, lo and behold, they go to the final, and, flash forward, they lose Game 7, and we lived kind of out by the people that are familiar with the area, by the border called Point Roberts. And Point Roberts doesn't have a whole lot, but they got a really good bar back in the day there called the Breakers. And so I woke up for school the next day, and there were 6 guys passed out on my living room, right? And of course I had a project due. I figured out pretty quick who it was, the Canucks. So I woke up Tony. I said, "You got to bail me out here." I didn't do this project, but if you guys can wheel down to the school here around 10:30, I'd be a big hit. So down they came. You know, now as you get older, you realize same clothes, stunk real bad. But yeah, I was a bit of a hit for a couple
but
days.
they showed up.
They showed up.
You chased your hockey dream with 6 junior teams. The longest stretch of any of them was, I think, 37 games with the Brandon Wheat Kings, who acquired
Bit of a
you.
suitcase.
Yeah, they acquired you from Portland.
you're wanted.
Who
Yeah,
traded you
yeah.
after 15 games, and so it went. When did you realize your dream wasn't going to lead you to the NHL as a player?
Oh, probably pretty early. I mean, you always, you always look at that team. You always
And look at that guy.
Hey,
Yeah.
6'4", 225.
Yeah, you always, you're always hoping to carry on, but probably pretty early. You went to a couple camps, and when you get into, playing the minors, you look around, you say, okay, one of these things doesn't look like the other. So, I was really realistic with my career, and at that point said, play as long as you can, and use it. You always wanted to be involved in the game and maybe use it for some contacts and network, and it worked out. Not anywhere. I got involved in things that I never thought I'd ever get involved to, but I knew pretty early that, if I was to go anywhere in the game, it certainly wasn't going to be on the ice.
Well, let's get into some of the things you got involved in. 5 years of pro hockey in the East Coast League, most of those with the Columbus Chill,
Yep.
a team that was born in 1991. So, on opening night, Columbus 1991-92 season, let's go to the videotape for some video that you probably cannot get enough of.
Now with me is a player who I'm sure can't wait to get on the ice tonight, Brad Treliving, a defenseman for the team, and this must be exciting for you guys as well.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We opened up camp about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and all the guys are pretty pumped to get that first home game, and it's finally here, and all the guys I know back in the room there are just raring to go.
Now you say it's important tonight to give the fans a great show out here.
Yeah, they've had hockey here before, and what I've been told tonight is we got a sold-out building, so what we want to do is put on a good show for the fans here, make them enjoy it, and hopefully they'll come back the rest of the year and support us and go from there.
All right, well, good luck to you tonight and your teammates, and show us a good show tonight.
Thanks very much, and we hope to.
All right.
So you had the hockky lingo down pat back then, Brad. What do you think, Brad Treliving, when you see that?
Where did the hair go? This is the first comment. That's sort of a Jerry
I've
curl
asked
I got
myself
going
that
back
question
there.
many times.
No, it was, Columbus is a special place. I ended up at the time that's where I met my wife. She was living there. She knew nothing about it. Showed up at a game. Never been to a game. But it was that organization. They're really. They did wonderful things in terms. They were ahead of their time in terms of the promotions, the stuff that they did, and it turns out, I learned a lot of that as I got involved in, running a league. We stole a lot of the ideas that they were using there. They were ahead of their times in terms of the promotions and some of their crazy. They were selling the sizzle back then. So, but it's a great city and proven with the Blue Jackets what they're doing there now.
The East Coast League was, at the time, well known for its brawls. So here you were vainly trying to defend the league's image.
Over the years it might have got a bad rap, but I think over the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, you can see this league is really turning into high-paced, fast hockey league.
The guy doing that report followed up that clip by saying, and meanwhile, the captain of the Columbus Chill has been suspended for striking an opposing player in the face with his stick. You mentioned, though, that Columbus did give you your greatest gift, which is your wife.
Yeah, no, we met there. So, and her family's still just outside. They farm outside of Columbus. So, no, it's certainly got a special place in our family for sure.
Well, you made your mark in that league too. You had over 800 penalty minutes in 240-ish games you played in the East Coast Hockey League. So
a lot of tens.
Yeah, there was a
tens.
lot of tens. There was a lot of dropping. We
Yeah.
tried to find some footage of you getting a couple scraps,
Yeah,
but
well, it was the game was a little different back there. And in those leagues, you show up there at one point. It was different hockey back then, and the guys that. We've seen guys come out of the East Coast League now. Back then, we always laughed. It was either a goaltender or a tough guy that was coming out of there. And there was a lot of them back in that day. So, it was sort of the Wild West for sure.
So your playing career ended, Brad, in 1995, and like most just retired players, you took the obvious decision to found your own pro hockey league. The Western Professional Hockey League, which took Texas by storm. How did that happen?
By fluke. It sort of started originally as a group of guys looking to buy a team. The brains behind the operation was a guy named Rick Kozubak. Rick coached me years ago in Penticton, and was involved in Okanagan Hockey School. And I was planning to come back after that spring, go back and play, but I got talking with Rick, and we put together a group and got my dad, his business partner George Melville, Darcy Rhoda, Kevin Lowe was involved. Put a group of investors together, and it was a unique idea where we franchised the league. We own the league. Where
and these are the 6 you started with.
These are the 6 we started with. And they had great, as you can see, great logos, some interesting places, Waco, Texas, Austin, but it was real successful. They were, at that point, people didn't know a lot about hockey there. The Dallas Stars had just moved to Dallas, but they had rivalries in place from high school football and all sorts of things like that. And so it was quite an education.
And so everything went remarkably smoothly. There were never any problems.
Oh yeah,
right?
no, never any problems. We always say, "Would you ever do it again?" Like, not a chance.
But honestly, there was seemingly a fire every day that needed to be extinguished. The weirdest problem that you encountered that you never imagined you would have until you faced it?
Well, quite a few. I mean, the one you're always battling with is you got a lot of underfunded owners at the time, but. We went into an opening game in Waco in October. It's still hot in Waco, Texas. So it was about 90 degrees out with 90% humidity. The building was fogged out, and we lost the mascot. The mascot collapsed. He had a big wizard head, they're called the way, and he dehydrated, and he's getting wheeled out on a gurney opening night. We lost the opening night of the league in Belton, Texas. We had about 6,500 people there, and half of them left after the second period thinking the game was over. It's 2 halves. So we had to chase them back in the building. So, yeah, every day, look back, every day there was a story to be had.
And paying the Fort Worth players with cash?
Yeah, we paid the Fort Worth players. We took over the team at one point, and so I had to go in there and make payroll. So, as you know, Lou, in the minors, you get paid by the week. So, again, I'm a young guy, still not figuring out, so I've got this weekly payroll, and I just grabbed the roster. So. Started with number 2. He got his 300, got his 300. Well, I got to 31, the goalie, and I hadn't given everybody some change. So all he had is about $300 left in quarters. So I had to put it in a sock, tie it up, and I said, "Trust me, buddy, it's all there. It's my fault." So that's how he got paid. He got paid in change that day. Yeah.
We talk so much about how important it is for players to develop in different leagues and work their way up. And that league for you, I know we talked about this years ago when we were working together in Phoenix. That really set the tone for you on the management side of things as well, too, in what you're doing now.
100%. You're going through it, and you think you're, like you said, some days you're just like, as Scott said, you're fighting fires every day, but it's learning. It's like going to school. It's like playing in the minors. And I believe that. I think, in the bigger picture, I think you've got to, the players that you look at here, those players that touch every step, there's the unique ones, the Matthew Tkachuks of the world, but for the most part, if you touch every step of the ladder on the way up, I think you develop a skill base, you develop a diverse skill set. And quite frankly, a lot of the things that I deal with today and when we were in Phoenix together, you're using a lot of the same business principles that you used back then. It's like going to school. You don't think you're ever going to use it, you end up using it. So a wonderful experience, unbelievable.
So, then 6 years as president of the Central Hockey League, after you merged the Western Professional Hockey League with it, you really were slugging it out in the back roads of hockey, the boonies. But there was always the option of going home and getting into the family business, Boston Pizza. Mm-hmm. Did you ever consider it?
Some days you're like, oh, maybe that, but not really. And that's not any slight. As we talked earlier, we're real proud of what my dad's done. He's built his business and through a lot of hard work, and I had always admired it from afar. And we were always around the business a little bit. We worked in stores when we were younger, but I wanted to set my own path. I think it's probably the Treliving stubbornness more than anything else. But you wanted to sort of carve your own path, and he let me do that. He let me sort of go down that path and fail quite a few times and get back up, but. No, it wasn't. And for me, I always felt it wasn't my passion, and I'm not real smart in that business. So those that have been working in it and know it better than I should be working in it more than I should.
So in '07, you met Don Maloney, then the general manager of the Phoenix Coyotes at the AHL meetings, and he hired you as his assistant GM in Phoenix, largely because you had a house in Phoenix and you didn't have to pay your moving costs.
Exactly.
What I find fascinating about you getting to the NHL was there never really was a blueprint, and you never said at any point to yourself, well, for example, if I work in the Central Hockey League for this number of years, I can get to the NHL. Were you really just making it up as you went along?
100%. There was no master plan. I mean, did you hope one day you could get involved? Yeah, I felt, you know, my passion was, you know, the sport and the game, and I'd like to be involved in it. But, you know, when you're doing what you were doing, you didn't have time really to figure out how you're going to survive from one day to the next. And that's what we did. And I believe that. I think you got to dump your energies into. If you're looking too far ahead or what your next move is, you're not going to do very well where you're at. So. Yeah, there was days where you'd say, you know, at some point I'd like to go there, but there certainly was no master plan of how to get there.
Then the day in April of 14 that you were hired as the Calgary Flames general manager, this happened really quickly, but because there never was any blueprint, I'm wondering how often you might have said to yourself on this day, as Brian Burke introduced you, how did this ever happen?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. Funny story there too. We ended the season just a few weeks before in Phoenix. And we were going in for our year-end meeting, and Don kicks me out of the meeting. We were meeting with the coaches and all the rest of it, and I think, you know, oh, this isn't good. And so I sat in the office all day while he met with Tip and the coaches and everything, came back and said, well, I didn't want you in there because you're going to go, Berkey's asked to interview you in Calgary. I think you're going to get the job, and we're going to be mortal enemies now. So I didn't want you to hear any of those things we were talking about. But no, it went real quickly, and I just forever indebted to Berkey. You know, I'd known him a little bit, you know, obviously we knew each other through years. He was running, or was the assistant manager in Vancouver when I went to Vancouver's camp there, way back. But, you know, got a call out of the blue, interviewed with him, and forever grateful for him bringing me to Calgary.
Well, then why don't we hear from Brian Burke?
I invited Brad Treliving to training camp with the Vancouver Canucks back in 1987 or 88, I think it was. And he showed a real keen business mind because he fought Gino Ojic, which was a big mistake. And when I cut him, he said, "You're making a mistake. I intend to play in the National Hockey League." And I said, "Kid, the only way you're going to see a game in this building is if you buy a ticket." And I was right.
Now, we'll never accuse Brian of exaggerating, but is that an accurate reflection of what he said to you?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. I said, you know, it's my dream to play in this building, and I'm going to do it one day. And he said, not without paying money for a ticket. Good luck. But no, he was great. And we, from that time on, you always sort of, you know, stayed in touch and see each other on the road. And funny how life works that you end up in Calgary together.
Tweet from Mike Gould. What was it like to work with Brian Burke on a day-by-day basis as you did here?
It was great. You know, the thing I always say about Berkey is, you know, we all see the gruff exterior, and I mean, he's loyal. He's such a loyal guy, loyal as a dog. But what people don't see is, and what I admire the most is just the father he is, and you know, the time and the money that he gives that nobody knows about to all the charitable work that he does. You know, so there is the gruff Irishman on the exterior, but a real caring guy who puts his kids first and is a great dad and has been a great friend.
We've got 30 seconds left, so we'll jam this in. I used the term self-made earlier. You come from a family with money, but you never asked your father for anything. It's not like he bought a team so you could have a job or invest it in this one so you could become general manager. You are a self-made man. You followed your own path. How much pride do you take in that?
Well, I never really thought about it, to be honest with you. You just sort of do. You sort of do what you do, and like I said, probably stubborn more than anything else. But you know, this has always been a passion of mine, and wanting to have success here with this team, and that's sort of all we think about.
As we like to say, I wish we had more time. Brad Treliving with a lifetime of stories, some of which we were privileged to hear tonight on After Hours. Back to conclude the proceedings at Scotiabank Saddledome in Calgary in a moment.